I found a couple of articles about this Outlaw Motorcycle Club, and not that there was ever anything to indicate that they were involved in either of these two women's disappearance. But this is what the police believe. Some of these men from this motorcycle club may have come into these clubs. They may have even been involved in the running of these clubs. I don't know. I couldn't find anything about that. But I'm just going to read these stories that I found about this motorcycle club. So I found this on a Facebook page, and it says Outlaw Motorcycle Club. The history of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club was originally founded in 1935 by John Davis. Little did anyone know that decades later it would be centered around crimes such as drug trafficking, prostitution, insurance fraud, extortion, threats of violence with illegal gambling, as well as attempted murder involving a missing persons case. The Indiana Outlaw Motorcycle Club was originally located at 2202 East New York Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. Throughout the years of investigating the groups in regards to the crimes with the federal agents was involved in a massive raid in July 2012, along with about 60 U.S. Marshal SWAT teams and canine dogs. It was referred to as the city's largest organized crime. The writing of this article it's like one long run-on sentence, but it just says it was referred to as the city's largest organized crime. Prostitution coordinated at the federal level. Two other properties, according to U.S. Marshals, the combined efforts of all levels of law enforcement were essential to remove this deeply entrenched organized crime motorcycle gang from the community. There were a total of 55 defendants that were indicted, including all 15 members of the Indianapolis chapter of the Outlaws, 2 members of the Fort Wayne chapter, 1 of the Sandusky, Ohio chapter, and a former member of the Indianapolis chapter. 49 of the 51 defendants were sentenced, and 2 members of the Mexican gang-related trafficking organization that supplied the Outlaws with cocaine was later deported. On October 13, 2015, a variety of local and national officials oversaw the demolition of the former Outlaw Motorcycle Club. A crane started the demolition of one of the buildings, which comprised 3 connected properties. In December of 1997, Shannon Turner was in a relationship with David Mays, known as the enforcer for the Outlaw Motorcycle Club. She had been working as an exotic dancer. On that cold winter night, Shannon simply vanished without a trace. Was her case pushed to the side because she was a dancer, or is it possible someone is keeping the evidence hidden? As time went on with no answers to where Shannon's remains could be found, David Mays refused to cooperate with law enforcement. His criminal behavior never slowed down. So to kind of pause right here and just put in my own thoughts on this, more than likely this motorcycle club, they probably had informants on the inside. They probably had police and undercover informants working on the inside of this motorcycle club to help bust them for these crimes. At one point of the investigation, a witness came forward and told the authorities that David Mays killed Shannon, which he has denied. So, as I spoke about earlier, they had no body, they had no evidence of a crime having been committed. There are people out there, having read through some comments on some websites about this case, that believe that Shannon may have gone into witness protection. Could Shannon have been And I couldn't find anything saying whether or not she had ever been charged with any crimes. But sometimes they will use people's, if a person does have criminal charges pending against them, to get them to give evidence against someone else, or to kind of wire a wire or whatever. Is it possible that Shannon was working with the police to try to bring some evidence against some of these people, against David Mays, maybe? And either they found out about this and killed her. They said she was trying to get out of the relationship with him. Did she just, was it that simple? Was it something as simple as she just said, I want to break up, I don't want to be with you anymore, and he just decided to kill her? They've never found her body. And some people do believe it's possible that she did go into witness protection. Fast forward to March of 2024. Her case stays on social media because her brother refuses to let anyone forget. He says a killer walks freely today, and he knows that this man is guilty. This woman that wrote this article says, I met Shannon's brother in 2021, and he did not want his sister to ever be forgotten. If the walls of 305 North Jefferson Avenue could talk, the murderous and heartbreaking stories they could tell. If these walls could talk, the investigators would hear about schemes that led to the crew's downfall in a federal racketeering investigation built on wiretaps and an insider's cooperation. They weren't extorting people anymore. They weren't just stealing motorcycles anymore. They weren't just filing false insurance claims. They weren't just chopping up motorcycles. They weren't just beating up eyewitnesses anymore. And it just goes on to talk about the arrests for narcotics trafficking. A massive raid in the summer of 2012 resulted in 51 arrests, with 19 outlaw members in handcuffs. One of their own officers turned on them. This confidential informant was not somebody who was arrested for something and was pleading down charges. This confidential informant was not somebody who came forward to collect a big fat paycheck. This informant was someone who was associated with the Outlaws for a number of years. He knew everything that had gone on with them, and he felt threatened by them. He felt that they posed an unacceptable danger to the community, and he stepped forward to work as an informant with the FBI. As demolition crews brought down the buildings. Now, let me just jump back for a second. If they had this person, and they don't name this person here, who was an insider. He'd been in this motorcycle gang for years. He wasn't facing charges. He wasn't in any kind of trouble as far as, independent of the club. So he wasn't making deals. He just decided enough's enough. He probably knew that he knew too much and was probably a target. We're tearing it down, so it starts here. We're tearing down corruption, unfair treatment of the neighborhood, people being held hostage in their own communities, and all the tyranny that existed around this motorcycle club. Some neighbors say they saw the Outlaws as a stabilizing force in the community. They kept away drug dealers and burglars and car thieves. Investigators took drugs, firearms, photographs, financial records out of the clubhouse before it was demolished. Whatever happened to Lola Fry, I couldn't find a whole lot of information related to her having been involved with these motorcycle clubs, these members. She may have been. I think her case, a lot of people believe that it was some type of retaliation. They said that after she went missing, some of the women who were involved in this lawsuit against these this doctor and this club owner and the manufacturer of these breast implants, some of them dropped out of this lawsuit for fear because they thought that this was probably what had happened to her, and they were afraid going forward that the same thing might happen to them. I kind of feel like that something happened to her that night at that party. I think that it's, or after she left that party with the ex-boyfriend, something happened to her that I don't think was related to, and I could be wrong about that, but it's just a feeling that she probably died. I mean, a drug overdose, what would be the reason for those people to conceal her body, hide her car over a drug overdose? So I don't think that it was an overdose. I think that there was some violence that happened. I think maybe she was murdered by her ex. I don't know if the police went into his home and searched, but keep in mind, you know, she was scheduled to give a deposition that day in relation to the lawsuit. So it's possible. Anything could be possible. But I really personally don't think that she was involved in, the motorcycle club unless they were used as enforcers for this dance club that she worked at. She had left the dance club and had moved back to her family's home and was trying to get away from that life. And maybe they thought she knew something. They didn't want her to leave that community. After a 2-month trial filled with testimony about murders and drug dealing, a federal jury found 10 members of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club guilty of racketeering. The jury deliberated for about 4 days. It found 12 of the 14 defendants guilty of conspiracy to participate in racketeering. The trial began March the 23rd for a variety of charges: racketeering, including acts of murder, drug dealing. Now, the murder, I'm assuming, is the murder that they believed was Shannon Turner, which was later dropped, and the man was later acquitted. Okay, here is David F. Mays, 38, of Indianapolis. Racketeering, conspiracy to commit racketeering, and conspiracy to use a firearm in a drug crime. He was also accused of killing Shannon Turner as part of the criminal enterprise, but the jury found that the government did not prove his involvement in the crime. There was no body or any evidence, so they dropped that charge. So I just wanted to share a little bit about the motorcycle club and how they were charged with all these crimes, and the building there in Indianapolis was eventually torn down, and there's never been any proof of any thing connecting them to the disappearance or the murder of Shannon Turner or Lola Fry, but there are a good many people out there that believe that people within that group, that motorcycle club, knows, and that David Mays was an enforcer for the club, and he was the last person known to have been with Shannon Turner. There are, like I said earlier, there are some people who believe Shannon Turner may have gone into witness protection or into some type of protection of her own making, but I don't think really people really believe that. I think that something did happen to her, probably just like Lola Fry. It was at the hands of the man who was last known to be with her. It was a tip that was called into the sister of Lola Fry that got them to start digging and to start looking in the waterways. Someone had told her that they had seen people out there and that they believed, with rumors and stuff going around, that her body may be buried out there. And this is what led them to look for her in that area. This was one of the only things that really led police to believe that she they could find no other involvement, or I could find nothing that I looked through all the websites and videos that I watched on this case to say that she had anything to do with this biker gang. But keep in mind, this biker gang controlled pretty much the entire community. In a previous article that I mentioned, they talked about how the biker gang policed that community, and some of the people in the neighborhoods looked at them as enforcers of the laws more so than the police. And maybe it's possible that some of the police were embroiled in with this group, and maybe some of them were afraid of them, so maybe they just didn't really want to step on their toes. But she just went on to say that every time an unidentified body was found, her father would get in his car and go to the police station to find out information about it. He never gave up looking for his daughter throughout his life. Lola Fry was trying to change her life when she died. Maybe this was what led to her. They say that women are at their biggest risk when they're trying to get out of a relationship, and this was another thing with the other woman as well. Shannon Turner, they said that she had told her family and friends that she was trying to end this relationship, and this man was probably a dangerous man. I couldn't find a whole lot about Lola Fry's boyfriend, John Riker, other than the police believed that he probably did have something to do with her disappearance, but were never able to find any evidence of that. And the family was just frustrated that over the years there was nothing. They felt like at times that there wasn't even anything really being done, that they had to stay right on top of the police and constantly call them and push them, and to try to keep them searching for their sister. And they still don't understand why the police were never able to find the car. But keep in mind, once again, like I said, I don't know if there was any connection with her and this biker gang, but they said that one of the things this biker gang was involved in was dismantling cars, chopping up cars and that type of thing. So, like I said, the connection could be that they enforced these clubs, these dance clubs that these women worked in. Fry's sister said that someone who was at the party that night with her sister told her that they believed that her sister had overdosed, and they watched John Riker and two other men wrap her body up in a blanket and carry her from this party. She continued to search for answers throughout her life. She contacted the local media, the national media. She contacted the governor of Indiana and President Bush. She contacted the FBI and the grand jury investigators. And she never stopped. She still has not stopped searching to find out what happened to her sister. That's just kind of where this story ends. It's sad that neither one of these women were ever given any kind of closure. But if anyone does have any information, they can contact 1-317-865-4909. Thanks for watching.